Hi gamers. The Game Boy Advance is probably my favorite handheld console of all time. I'll talk more about the first black and white Game Boy and Game Boy Color in their own respective collection update videos, but this is just about the Game Boy Advance. Of course, well, the DS and the 3DS have tons and tons of fantastic games, and they really brought into something new into handheld gaming for sure. But the Game Boy Advance was for me the pinnacle of 2D gaming, at least in portable form. It's like a slightly souped up Super Nintendo, and very few 3D games, even though there were some released for the Game Boy Advance, but this is just pure 2D goodness, really gorgeous graphics and fantastic 2D gameplay, perfected. When the world was playing, Nintendo 64, PlayStation 1, and even GameCube and PlayStation 2, they were still perfecting these 2D games, and that's really something that I value. So without further ado, here are my 57 Game Boy Advance games. Again, starting in alphabetical order, Advance Wars 2 Black Hole Rising. Now I know what you're saying, where's Advance Wars 1, and I gotta tell you, I don't know what brain damage I had suffered when I did own it. Of course, it was an essential game back in the day, but I just don't own it now. I guess I must have sold it, which is crazy, because I never sell anything, but for some reason I just have Advance Wars 2 here. A fantastic game, of course, in its own right. Brought some new ideas into the concept as well. But yeah, Advance Wars 1 and 2 are fantastic, really hardcore, but still simplified turn-based strategy games. Astro Boy Omega Factor. This is something that many people probably overlook, but this, and make no mistake, this is a top-notch 2D action side-scrolling action game developed by Treasure, the makers of Ikaruga, Radiant Silvergun, and Guardian Heroes, games like that. So this is really a gem that many people, I guess, don't have. So you really should get this game. This is a truly underrated game. Then a really cool trilogy of games. We had Castlevania Harmony of Dissonance, and the third game, Castlevania Aria of Sorrow. Not that cheap games anymore to get, at least in complete form, and well, they truly deserve the attention they're getting. It's really fantastic how the Game Boy Advance actually got 3 full-fledged Metroidvania games, if you can call them that. Absolutely beautiful graphics and music, and fantastic play areas, secrets, huge games all in all. Really essential games on the Game Boy Advance. These were really a huge blessing for the console. Then some puzzling, Column's Crown and Choo Choo Rocket, 2 games in one. Donald Duck Advance, some basic platforming. Doom. This is a pretty good version for a handheld. That is, it does omit some of the level design. They are pretty much in one level. There isn't deep pits or something like that. So they had to redesign some of the levels here. But this is a really plays great too. Even though there are only 4 buttons on the Game Boy Advance, it still works. I have really fond memories of this game. When I played this, I was in the military at the time, and I got sick for a week, so all I did was play Doom in the hospital. Saved my days then. some more puzzling, another 2 games in one, slightly rarer than the previous game I showed, Dr. Mario and Puzzle League. Puzzle League is also known as a Pokemon Puzzle League. It was, I think, first released on the Nintendo 64. Fire Emblem: The Sacred Stones. There were 3 Fire Emblem games on the Game Boy Advance, and 2 of those came over to the West. One stayed in Japan. Like with Advance Wars, fantastic games, really hardcore strategy games, and actually these are developed by the same company, Advance Wars and Fire Emblem. Really important games again for the Game Boy Advance. Then some Final Fantasy 1 and 2, Dawn of Souls, a remake of the first 2 games, and Final Fantasy 6 was also released on the Game Boy Advance. And yeah, of course I have these on their original systems, but nice to have them in portable form as well. Also got here, I gotta move these, a VGA graded copy of Final Fantasy VI. Nice to have. And there was also Final Fantasy Tactics Advance, and this isn't a remake of the PlayStation 1 original. This is a brand new game, and really a fantastic one at that. It's Game Boy Advance is perfectly suited to these turn-based RPG strategy games. It's really fits, even if you have low light or something like that. You don't need fast reflexes in these games, and if you're low on battery, you can save and have a few turns here and there, just continuing the game whenever you have the time to play. So great portable games. And then we have F-Zero GP Legend. There was a total of 3 F-Zero games on the Game Boy Advance, and the last one it didn't even come outside Japan, and that was the last F-Zero game released so far. So they really should bring the series back, whether it is on a handheld or the Wii U. They really have to bring F-Zero back, my favorite racing series. Even though I don't really. They added several game modes in these Game Boy Advance games, but somehow these just don't have the same amount of charm to me. The anime story here, and I don't know, something about the drivers and the machines themselves that just lack a bit of character to me. The original Super Nintendo characters were fantastic, and the cast of the F-Zero X on the Nintendo 64 and F-Zero GX on the GameCube were just a crazy bunch of guys and gals. But these not my favorite ones in the series, even though they are great racing games on the Game Boy Advance. Then Game & Watch Gallery Advance, 6 Game & Watch games. You can either play them in black and white mode or with the colors and slightly improved gameplay. So nice collection. Then some RPG here, Golden Sun. There were several RPG series that were remade on the Game Boy Advance, or just had new installments released on this machine, but Golden Sun was one of the new IPs on the system, developed just for Game Boy Advance, and this is a truly beautiful game. Some of the best graphics and music on the whole system. if you ask me. There's also a sequel, Golden Sun, The Lost Age, which continues the story of the first game almost seamlessly. And yeah, these are really old school stuff. Paper maps included in the boxes here, so really fantastic games. And you should check out, if you haven't seen these, check out some of the Jin attacks. The special attacks are really something to look at. Can't believe they achieved the graphics they did on the humble Game Boy Advance. And again, got here a sealed VGA grade copy of the second game. Then another game by Treasure, Gunstar Future Heroes, and yeah, it's more of the same than the Mega Drive classic. Then it's Mr. Pants. Don't worry if this looks weird, it's actually made by Rare. I guess not many people know this, but Rare actually continued making games for Nintendo's handhelds, even though they were bought by Microsoft. There were a couple of games on the Game Boy Advance and even on the DS. So even though this is basically a Rare mascot, a puzzle game that has, as you can see, it doesn't take itself too seriously. But Rare did make some actual games as well, like Diddy Kong Racing games like that. So Rare actually never left. They probably made their best games still for Nintendo, even though they were bought by Microsoft. So that was funny always to me. King Kong, the official game of the movie. And then probably my favorite puzzle game on the system, Kuru Kuru Kururin. This was actually a launch game, and in Japan they also released a sequel, Kururin Paradise, more of the same. And this is a really charming game, absolutely full of color. This is probably one of the most colorful games there is. And really, like all good puzzle games, a deceptively simple premise, and while mastering the game, it's really a hard task. Tons and tons of levels in both of these games, and really addicting stuff to play through. Legend of Spyro: A New Beginning, or platforming. Then we get to the Zelda games. First up, a remake or a graphical enhanced version of The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. But what's I guess even more important, this includes Four Swords, a multiplayer game, and you had to have 4 Game Boy Advances linked together in order to play the Four Swords game. This isn't the same game that was released on the GameCube. That's Four Swords Adventures. This is a whole new adventure released only on this game here. The Minish Cap is an exclusive to the Game Boy Advance, and I gotta tell you, this is a fantastic game. I'm really bummed that they went the way that Nintendo went with the DS Zeldas. I'm not that big of a fan. I think the two DS Zeldas are the worst in the series. Not bad still, but just the worst in the series. Whereas the previous handheld Zelda, the Minish Cap, was absolutely fantastic. This has gorgeous graphics, brand new ideas. Love the shrinking mechanic, and all the secrets you can find when you're a mini Link, and just a charming game. Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga, just the fourth game in the series, came out on the 3DS just now, and this is basically where it started, the Mario and Luigi series, even though you can argue that this is related to Paper Mario and on the Super Nintendo Super Mario RPG before that, but basically this is its own charming little series, and really great puzzles and adventure. The action is somewhat simplistic, but it's just a treat to wander around the game world here, and as with all Paper Mario and Mario RPG, really great sense of humor here. Plenty of ironic touches here and there. Mario vs. Donkey Kong, a puzzle game pretty much in the vein of Lemmings, but just with Mario and Donkey Kong as characters, and of course with the usual Nintendo twists. Then, really cool series of games started on the Game Boy Advance as well. Here we have Mega Man Zero, and I'm missing game number 2, but here we have Mega Man Zero 3 and Mega Man Zero 4. You can see here how successful the Game Boy Advance was when Capcom made a total 4 games on the system. Absolutely fantastic games, even though I do prefer the X series. I don't know, mainly because I just prefer Mega Man X as a character, not Zero, but still very cool games. Really cool 2D action, something that we really don't get as much today as we did back in the day, but you know, so many goodies on the Game Boy Advance. Then Metal Slug Advance. I'm a huge fan of Metal Slug. On Neo Geo I own several games, both on the NVS coin-op and AES home console. This is something a bit different, so they did SNK did port all of the Metal Slugs on to the PlayStation 2, Xbox, the Wii, all sorts of consoles. And but this is a brand new game, and they added some features here just to give it that much more replayability, and lasting power. And this is has some more adventure. You can actually stray from the path that you're giving a bit, and lots of bonus features and collectibles, stuff like that. So really an essential action game on the Game Boy Advance. And like with Mega Man Zero series and the Castlevania series, the goodies just kept on coming. Metroid Fusion, a full-fledged 2D Metroid game. I'd give my left arm to get a new 2D Metroid, but hopefully we will get one of those, and not just well. Who am I kidding? I'll take Metroid Prime as well, but 2D Metroid it's really a blessing, and there was actually 2 of these on the Game Boy Advance, although the Zero Mission is a remake of the first NES game, even though, well, in my opinion, this is almost, you can't even recognize it as the same game, so they really spiced up the game here. But again, here 2 2D Metroids on the Game Boy Advance. Even these games alone would make me cherish my Game Boy Advance, and really essential games. Then we have here a Japanese copy of Mother 3. Of course, this was never released outside Japan, at least not officially. I'd really like them to translate the game finally to over here in the West. Haven't played this because I don't know Japanese. Then we have almost forgot. Also had a VGA rated copy of Metroid Fusion here as well. Then we have a game series here, the NES Classics. So just pixel perfect versions of NES games. Here we have Bomberman, first Castlevania, Ice Climber, Metroid, Pac-Man, and Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link. There were a total of 12 of these NES classics released in the West, lots more and different games that released in Japan. The Famicom games, I got 6 here, so going for a full collection. Of course, I do have most of these on the original NES, but hey, still nice, a nice collectible on the Game Boy Advance. Rayman, Raving Rabbids, The Simpsons, Road Rage, Sonic 2 Advance, great Sonic gaming on Game Boy Advance as well. And this is actually my only Super Mario Advance game. Advance 4, Super Mario Bros. 3, and of course I have all the Mario games on their original platforms, but I guess I'm still gonna be collecting all of these on the Game Boy Advance as well. And really a great treat if you missed the original games, and nice to have them all on the Game Boy Advance. And these are the basically the Super Mario All-Stars versions, so I have the better graphics on the Game Boy Advance. Then Polarium Advance. This came out after the DS version launched, so the DS Polarium is it's one of my favorite puzzle games, actually. Certainly my favorite puzzle game on the DS. This is actually sealed. I haven't played this on the Game Boy Advance. I'm having difficulties in realizing how well this could play without the stylus, because the first Polarium was just made for the touchscreen, and the levels, the toughest levels, really relied on speed, how you can clear the levels. But I'm sure that this is also a really great addition to the puzzle games on Game Boy Advance. And then my final VGA graded game, Tales of Fantasia. This was originally came out on the Super Nintendo, and this was actually the first time that we got the game out over here in Europe. Really great RPG by Namco. And then we have here, put that aside, WarioWare Incorporated, Minigame Mania. So a collection of 200 micro games, not mini games, but micro games. There had been minigame collections before this, but never micro game collections, games that last just a few seconds, and I just love the frantic gameplay here. They released this same game on the GameCube in all of its Game Boy Advance graphical glory, but added some multiplayer aspects to it, and yeah, the GameCube version is still one of my favorite multiplayer games ever. But this is where it all started, and yeah, good for Wario to get his own series so popular as this one. And there has been many sequels in the series, and each of the games have really something truly unique added to the game, you know, like motion controls and touch controls, everything. There's also a sequel on the Game Boy Advance, WarioWare Twisted, which came in this special bigger cartridge, that had tilting sensors built in. way before the Wii. So this is really Warrior really pushed the envelope with each installment in the series. This was never released in Europe. I waited for a long time, and it stayed in the released lists, but it never came out here, so I had to import this from the US. And finally, I guess you've been looking at this weird stack of small white cased games here, and this is the Bit Generations, a collection of 7 games that was released only in Japan. I'll just go through these games here fast. Boundish, Coloris, Dial Hex, Digidrive, Dot Stream, Orbital, and Sound Voyager. These were all budget games released for a significantly lower price when they launched, and these are basically really simple games. They thought of one main idea for a game and just went with it. They didn't expand upon it. There isn't any story in these, and there's just a game, really simplistic graphics. And basically you can call all of these puzzle games, I guess, even though some might have some racing aspects, stuff like that. But basically all are puzzle games, and really unique takes. And I guess these still are quite inexpensive, so I recommend picking up the entire set. These were released, some of these games were released on the DS as well, downloadable versions, but these originals never made it out of Japan. And to me the most interesting one is Sound Voyager. It's actually a game that a blind man can play, of course after you tell them the rules of the game, but you can close your own eyes and play just with the sound. So really unique stuff. This is a great and innovative series of games on the Game Boy Advance. I love these. And with that, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.